knowledge, practice, experience. Yeah, well, tell you what, let's go to the gym and then let's make a coffee. Gym done, now time for that coffee. Hi, welcome back. So I wanted to touch on this week building your experience because I think when it comes to developing creativity, that also comes from practice. And when I say practice in regard to photography, I mean just getting out there, just go to different places, take your camera pretty much everywhere you go. So I think that the beautiful thing about photography is you're never done. You've never learnt it all. You've never peaked. You've never hit the spot. And I was watching an Anthony Bourdain program, Parts Unknown. I keep saying that had I can't remember the guy's name. I'll put it at the bottom here. He was the director of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he's a passionate photographer. And during the Anthony Bourdain program, I noticed that the producer of the movies had his camera around his neck, and it showed throughout the program. He would just stop, take some pictures when he saw something. And this guy must have been in his 80s. And you look at when some of his early movies were out, he was producing them in his 20s and 30s. So it shows how long he's been a practicing photographer for. So what I think it is I think sometimes you don't necessarily want to make big plans. You don't want to be like, right, Saturday, getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning, getting to such a place for 10 o'clock. I'm going to spend 3 hours and I'm going to shoot this, and this. Okay? I think what you've got to do sometimes, and a lot of the time, is just take your camera wherever you go, and just, if you've got a spare 5 minutes, just get the camera out and just start taking pictures of whatever's there. I'll put up some pictures now. This was, I went to Runcorn, which is about 15 miles away from me. And before I headed home, got my camera and I just went out shooting pictures. And they're not brilliant. They're not great pictures at all. But what it was me getting out into the environment, taking photographs, bringing them home, editing them, and trying to get them to look the way that I had envisioned. And I say they're not brilliant photos, they're far from. But what this is doing is this is building experience. This is getting me out there with my camera and taking photographs of anything and everything. No set genre, not landscape, not street photography, just a bit of... By trying to keep your camera on you as much as possible and shooting as much as possible, within reason, I think make sure you're still enjoying it. If you're like, oh, feels like a chore to take your camera out. Well, don't take your camera out, because that kind of defeats the object of trying to develop our creativity more. The whole point is you're gaining experience, a valuable experience, because what you're going to do is you're going to train your photographic eye. And by training that eye, you start to learn to see within the frame. You start to see the different colors, the different textures, symmetry, rules of thirds, leaning lines, frames within frame. All that we'll cover at a later time, but you start to develop that eye. And what you'll do is after a while, even when you've not got your camera there, you can still practice seeing. You can still practice looking at different things and imagine them through a viewfinder or the back screen on your camera. And this practice needs to be done alongside the projects you have planned. Like I say, I've got 2 books I'm trying to do. One called Pride in the Port, which I've mentioned before, which is photographs of my local area. And again, went to Cheshire Oaks, went out with my camera, so we'll put those photos on in a little bit as well. And I'm also doing a mindful photography book. But by going out and building that experience up, when it comes to the projects, you'll be everything will be well oiled, everything will be working well within your brain. You won't have had like weeks off at a time going, oh, let me just check my camera. You want to pick the camera up. Cameras aren't massively technically hard to use, but they do take a bit of practice. But you want to be just natural with that camera. You don't want to be having to think about the settings when you come to just going out. They want to be like second nature. Your f-stop, your shutter speed, your ISO, they need to become second nature. So practicing, even if your photographs are shit, it doesn't matter. It means what you've done is you've gone out and you built experience. If you go out and the photos are a complete failure, well, we learn from failure. Okay, so that is another important lesson, is don't go out trying to take your best photos ever. Another point I want to make as well is fall in love with the process, fall in love with the going out. I find photography really mindful, and I think when if you guys have watched the last vlog, and I explained about the mental health problems I've had and struggled with and how I express them with a self-portrait. Photography for me, I find it very mindful. If life moves at a crazy pace, especially as a wedding photographer, like I've just done 3 jobs back to back, so literally done 30 odd hours in 3 days. It was like 36 hours, 12 hours, 13 hours at a time, something like that. So it was exhausting, and then you've got to go through the editing as well. So I always try to keep business and pleasure separate, even though they're the same thing, if that makes sense. Obviously, I am a professional photographer, wedding photographer predominantly, but I do other things as well. I do photo shoots and festivals and all that kind of stuff. As you'll see, if you look at this vlog, this is I shot Castle Park Festival. That's a good vlog. Think of it like it's almost like when you go out with your camera, you're not there with your camera to take photos. You're there to look, to see. You're there to feel. You want to start looking and thinking to yourself, what I'm looking at now, what kind of photo would that be? What kind of photo would I like that to be? And start to develop these kind of these sort of thought process where you're starting to look and see, and it might be a person walking down the street, but then what you've got to do is you'll start to notice that person walking down the street, and what you'll do is you'll start taking photos of that person or an object or something like that, a car. It's not necessarily a person. But what you'll start to do is you'll then start to notice the background of that person, behind that person, the foreground. And then what you'll do is through constantly going out with your camera, constantly practicing, you'll start to notice the foreground, the midground, the subject, the background, and you'll start thinking about how they work together to make a complete composition, if that makes sense. I hope it does. So just get out there and practice. Things. Take rubbish pictures, mediocre pictures, take great pictures, but don't try to take great pictures. Just take pictures. Enjoy the process. Enjoy going out with your camera. Enjoy looking at things. Enjoy taking the photos. Enjoy getting those photos home, pop them on the computer, and taking time to edit them. Enjoy that, and make sure you take time to enjoy that, because I think in the world we live now, everything's such fast-paced that we forget to take time for ourselves, and one thing I've learned with my mental health problems is it's important to take time for yourself. You're not being selfish. It's self-care. With self-care, helps develop creativity. Okay, so get out there, take some photos, tag me in the photos on my Instagram. This link here, I think, is my hobbyist Instagram page. So tag that when you come up with some photos, and we will have a look at those photos, and I will comment and I will let you know. And so these photos that I've done, they're all right. And when you post photos as well on social media, they don't have to always be your best photos. I post photos all the time, and most of them are all right, whereas, people sort of well known in the art world might look at them and rip them to pieces, but that's not the point. The point is I'm just enjoying taking photos and posting photos and just talking to people about photos.